So this news just broke about 3 hours ago, of course, late on a Friday night at 10:30 p.m. as they seem to do. So, the Justice Department fired 3 prosecutors involved in criminal cases from January 6th, but they aren't sharing specifics. Naturally, the progressive media isn't taking the news lightly, and that's the game they play. They will accuse Trump or his administration of bias or making this move simply because those prosecuted were his supporters. Of course, it couldn't possibly be due to the fact that these prosecutors used unsubstantiated evidence or used completely unreliable testimony, or the fact that they gave January 6ers years in prison for simply walking into the Capitol building after Capitol Police opened the doors themselves, allowing people inside. Now, this is a problem I have with the Justice Department not giving a reason for their dismissals. It's a highly politicized issue, which will only draw a stronger criticism from the left so long the Justice Department remains elusive regarding their terminations. I mean, did they use unreliable evidence? Did they question witnesses on the stand who turned out to be making things up after reviewing other evidence, such as CCTV footage? I mean, there were participants who were justifiably given jail sentences, such as that woman who stole Nancy Pelosi's laptop, and there were probably others who stole property from the Capitol or even caused vandalism. One major problem people have is the lack of accountability from the Capitol Police and other law enforcement at the Capitol that day. The fact that the crowd was under control until they started firing rubber bullets and freaking tear gas at the crowd. And of course, we'll never know for sure, but many speculate that disguised federal agents in the crowd convinced participants to move past the barricades and toward the doors. And when they got there, the police just simply let them in. Someone by the name of Ray Epps comes to mind. Besides, is it justified to give a multiple year sentence for an individual who enters a building owned by the people during an official proceeding, of which time the Capitol is considered closed to the public? I mean, it doesn't seem justifiable to give someone multiple years in prison for simple trespassing. I mean, not that a building owned by the public is really trespassing. So, I mean, of course, the American people are sick of the constant bias and the rules for thee, not for me favoritism given to the leftists and progressives, the rioting, the looting, the smashing of windows, setting cars on fire, that kind of look the other way treatment. What happened with January 6ers is the opposite of leftist rioters. While a few people on the left will be criminally charged for the most extreme acts of violence, throwing Molotov cocktails and setting police stations on fire, for instance, most January 6ers were unjustly imprisoned for years, despite the fact that they caused no damage whatsoever and for merely ushering into the Capitol by authorities or followed other people inside. People were following the velvet ropes around the rotunda, for crying out loud. I mean, it's the double standards people are sick of and the lack of transparency from our federal government, even under the Trump administration. Just give us the exact reasoning why these prosecutors were fired. But anyway, I'll just go ahead and digress from all that. It's just irritating. But anyway, so the Justice Department abruptly fired 3 prosecutors involved in January 6 criminal cases. And of course, this is out of Washington. The Justice Department on Friday fired at least 3 prosecutors involved in the U.S. Capitol riot criminal cases, the latest moves by the Trump administration targeting attorneys connected to the massive prosecution of the January 6, 2021 attack, according to 2 people familiar with the matter. Those dismissed include 2 attorneys who worked as supervisors overseeing the January 6 prosecutions in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, as well as a line attorney who prosecuted cases stemming from the Capitol attack, the people said. They spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss personal matters. A letter that was received by one of the prosecutors was signed by Attorney General Pam Bondi. The letter did not provide a reason for their removal, effective immediately, citing only Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution and the laws of the United States, according to a copy seen by the Associated Press. Of course, we don't know if it was an official copy. We don't even know if they were shown a copy at all. All we know is that the Associated Press said that they saw a copy, but I don't see the copy on my screen. I don't see them taking an image of it and sharing it for their readers. I mean, where is it? I don't understand. It's almost as if it doesn't even really exist. But I will push back against Attorney General Pam Bondi, as I just said, that she needs to give a reason. They need to give any reason besides just saying, oh, it's because Article 2 of the Constitution. Okay, fine. If you want me to look it up, fine, I'll do that. And thanks to the power of the pause button, I actually pulled it up here. So the U.S. Constitution, Article 2, there's Section 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's definitely not in the first section. That's just talking about electing the president and the process with that. But here in Section 2, I did come up with this, and I assume this is probably what they're speaking about. So the president shall have power by and with the advice and consent of the Senate to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators present concur, and he shall nominate, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States, whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for, and which shall be established by law. But the Congress may, by law, vest the appointment of such inferior offices as they think proper in the president alone, in the courts of law, or in the heads of departments. Then it says the president shall have the power to fill up all vacancies that may happen during the recess of the Senate, granting commissions which shall expire at the end of their next session. But the next one talks about the State of the Union and convening Congress and whatnot. And then number 4 is talking about impeachment and that whole thing. But I mean, other than that, I don't really see anything that's all that relevant with regard to, letting prosecutors go. I mean, citing it, I wish she would cite exactly what she's talking about in Section 2 of the Constitution, because that's the best I could come up with. But, I'm no constitutional scholar or anything like that. But it would just be nice if we were given a little bit better information than, well, just check out Article 2 of the Constitution. I don't think that's good enough. I really don't. I think we need exact reasons why they were let go. I think we need, tangible evidence that they may have fabricated or something that may have happened during the process. I mean, look, we all know why they were let go, because there was extreme bias on their part. They had a deep hatred toward January 6ers. They wanted to set up this giant propaganda campaign painting Trump and Trump supporters to be these right-wing extremists that are trying to engage in an insurrection and essentially steal the government out from under the American people. I mean, I get it. I understand it. I'd like for them to give just, a real rational, clear-cut reason as to why they were let go. That's all I'm asking for. I don't think that's asking too much. So anyway, I'll just continue with it here. So a Justice Department spokeswoman declined to comment Friday evening. The terminations marked yet another escalation of norm-shattering moves that have raised alarm over the Trump administration's disregard for civil service protections for career lawyers and the erosion of the Justice Department's independence from the White House. Top leaders at the Justice Department have also fired employees who worked on the prosecutions against Trump and demoted a slew of career supervisors in what has been seen as an effort to purge the agency of lawyers seen as insufficiently loyal. Oh my God, that's such bullshit and so fucking stupid. Trump's sweeping pardons of the January 6th rioters have led to worries about actions being taken against attorneys involved in the massive prosecution of more than 1,500 Trump supporters who stormed the Capitol as lawmakers met to certify President Joe Biden's election victory. Trump pardoned or commuted the sentences of all of them on his first day back at the White House. Yes, because most of them simply walked in there and they stood around and then they walked out again. That's all they did. At the very worst, they were trespassing. That's it. Just trespassing. No more, no less. No vandalism, no grand theft, no insurrection. Obviously, nothing was bound to happen. Nothing at all. I don't think anybody who even walked in there was even armed with a firearm. How the fuck are you going to take over the government without even so much as a freaking firearm? And you've got 1,500 people. All right, you got 1,500 people. You really think 1,500 people who are not even armed are going to just storm in and completely take control of the entire federal government? Give me a fucking break. It's retarded. So anyway, during his time as interim U.S. Attorney in Washington, Ed Martin in February demoted several prosecutors involved in the January 6th cases. Hold on. I actually didn't even get back here. So Trump pardoned or commuted the sentences of all of them on his first day back at the White House, releasing from prison people convicted of seditious conspiracy and violent assaults on police. Oh yeah, violent assaults on police. 1,500 of them, huh? Or how many of them were sentenced to years in prison? And how many of those actually did, documented on camera? Because how many cameras are on the Capitol? What, hundreds, thousands, perhaps? I mean, how many of them were with tangible, actual, verifiable evidence actually assaulted police officers? How many of them were actually arrested, convicted? Because look, if they actually, whoever did assault anybody who was an officer on the scene, whether if it's a Capitol officer or a local DC cop, they should be going to jail and they should serve some time in jail because assaulting an officer is a felony. So if they did that, fine, lock them up. I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with that. But see, the real thing is that the way they're framing this, they're making it sound like that 1,500 freaking Trump supporters just brutally almost beat to death all these cops, and then they stormed into the Capitol and they did what? Like set up like a Chaz or a Chop, like what happened up in Seattle during 2020, that we're just going to storm into the Capitol building and just hijack it, and now it's ours, it belongs to us. It's so absolutely brain dead fucking stupid. It's absolutely stupid as hell. Anyway, in January, then acting Deputy Attorney, hold on, wait, let me just make sure here. Actually, I'm just going to read this one here again. So during his time as interim U.S. Attorney in Washington, Ed Martin in February demoted several prosecutors involved in the January 6 cases, including the attorney who served as chief of the Capitol Siege section. Others demoted include 2 lawyers who helped secure seditious conspiracy convictions against Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes and former Proud Boys national chairman Enrique Tarrio, who, by the way, wasn't even in the Capitol that day. Enrique Tarrio wasn't even in Washington, D.C. that day. He wasn't even in Maryland that day. Or he wasn't even in Virginia that day. He was nowhere near Washington, D.C. that day. But they locked him up anyway. Which is funny. Like, they like to paint him as like some alt-right white supremacist, even though he's a black man from Cuba. But I guess I'll digress on that one. So anyway, in January, then acting Deputy Attorney General Emile Bove ordered the firings of about 24 prosecutors who had been hired for temporary assignments to support the January 6 cases, but were moved into permanent roles after Trump's presidential win in November. Bove said he would not tolerate subversive personnel actions by the previous administration. And that concludes the article. You know, the framing is just out of this world. It's hilarious how they just try to cling on to that narrative for dear life, even though, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's been debunked all up and down, all over the place. I mean, they've released CCTV footage all over the Capitol property, and time again, look, there's no fire, man. There's no smoke. I mean, they're all making all this shit up. Yeah, there were a couple of cops that were probably assaulted. Yeah, there were a bunch of people that walked into the Capitol, stormed into the Capitol, and getting a little hyperbolic there, but they walked into the Capitol. They stood around. They walked around the velvet ropes. You know, they behaved for almost the entire time. I'm sure most people who walked in there didn't even say a cuss word. They were in and out of there within a couple hours, at the most. I don't even know if they were even in there for an hour or two. But yeah, there was one person who stole Nancy Pelosi's laptop. I think there was somebody else who walked out with the podium, the guy wearing those horns or whatever. I think maybe he might have grabbed a podium or something like that. But, I mean, realistically, that's about all they showed. I mean, that's about all I saw, and I saw just about everything there was to see. I mean, I was here following it all. I'm on X every single day, have been for years at this point, so I don't really see anything above and beyond that, and anything that was warranting spending years and years in prison. And I'm not even getting into the fact that they locked him into solitary confinement, and supposedly they put him in deplorable conditions, gave him terrible food, sometimes didn't even feed him. I don't really know if that's actually true. That's just what I've heard. As far as I'm concerned, it's a rumor, even though I really would prefer not to call it that, because a lot of people actually live through those conditions and they swear those conditions happened to them. I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't there, so I can't say for sure whether if they did or not. But anyway, that's how the Associated Press is framing it. This isn't the only website that actually ran this exact copy-paste article. There's a whole bunch of them that have been released all at the exact same time, you know, because that's what the mainstream news does these days. They just copy and paste everybody else's articles, and it's kind of like a circular firing squad, as Obama put it some time ago. And anyway, that's all I'm going to say on that. I mean, I just hope that they come out with something a little more tangible than, well, we just let him go, and we're just going to leave it at that, because that's only going to fuel the flames of this political nightmare we've been stuck in for 10 years, no thanks to the stupid Democrats and the idiot leftist progressives. But anyway, I'll just digress in general. Hope you enjoy your weekend. Have a nice night. See you later.